Once upon a time, in a charming village nestled at the edge of a grand forest, lived a kind and gentle girl named Cinderella. Despite her unfortunate circumstances, Cinderella's heart was filled with hope and dreams. She lived with her wicked stepmother and stepsisters, who treated her as a servant and made her do all the household chores. Yet, Cinderella never lost her kind spirit or her belief in magic. One day, an invitation arrived at their humble cottage. It was an announcement for the grand royal ball at the palace, where the prince would choose his bride. Cinderella's heart soared with excitement. She longed to go to the ball, dance in a beautiful gown, and maybe, just maybe, catch the prince's eye. However, her stepmother and stepsisters had different plans. They mocked her dreams and gave her even more chores to ensure she wouldn't have time to prepare. On the night of the ball, they left Cinderella alone, dressed in rags and feeling heartbroken. As Cinderella wept in the garden, her tears sparkling under the moonlight, a soft glow appeared beside her. It was her fairy godmother, a kind and magical being who had been watching over her. "Don't cry, dear Cinderella," the fairy godmother said, her voice as gentle as a lullaby. "You shall go to the ball." With a wave of her wand, the fairy godmother transformed a pumpkin into a magnificent golden carriage. Mice turned into splendid horses, a rat became a stately coachman, and lizards transformed into footmen. Lastly, with another flick of her wand, Cinderella's rags turned into a breathtaking gown of shimmering blue, and delicate glass slippers adorned her feet. "Remember, Cinderella," the fairy godmother warned, "the spell will only last until midnight. You must leave the ball before the clock strikes 12. Cinderella thanked her fairy godmother and stepped into the carriage, feeling like she was living a dream. As she arrived at the palace, everyone turned to look at the beautiful stranger entering the ballroom. The prince, enchanted by her grace and beauty, immediately asked her to dance. The night was magical. Cinderella and the prince danced together, their hearts beating in perfect harmony. They talked and laughed, feeling as if they had known each other forever. The prince was captivated by Cinderella's kindness and charm, and Cinderella felt as if she was floating on air. As the night wore on, Cinderella lost track of time. Suddenly, the clock began to strike 12. "Oh no," she gasped, pulling away from the prince. "I must go." She ran from the ballroom, leaving behind a confused and heartbroken prince. As she hurried down the grand staircase, one of her glass slippers slipped off. She didn't stop to retrieve it and continued running until she reached her carriage. Just as she climbed in, the clock struck 12, and the magic faded away. Cinderella found herself in her rags once more, standing in the quiet street, the golden carriage and horses gone. The next day, the prince sent out a royal decree. He would marry the girl whose foot fit the glass slipper. The prince and his men traveled from house to house, searching for the mysterious girl. When they arrived at Cinderella's cottage, her stepsisters tried to force their feet into the slipper, but it was too small for them. Desperate to make it fit, they huffed and puffed, but it was all in vain. The prince, disappointed but determined, asked if there were any other young women in the house. Her stepmother scoffed and replied, "Only our servant girl, Cinderella," but she didn't go to the ball. The prince insisted that every girl should try on the slipper, so Cinderella was called to the room. She appeared shyly, her heart pounding with a mixture of hope and fear. The prince smiled warmly at her, sensing something special. As she gently placed her foot into the slipper, it fit perfectly. Gasps of astonishment filled the room, and the prince knew he had found his mysterious dancer. He looked into Cinderella's eyes and recognized the kindness and grace that had captivated him the night before. "You are the one," the prince said softly, taking her hand. "You are the girl I danced with at the ball. Will you marry me?" Cinderella, her heart brimming with joy, nodded, "Yes, I will." Her stepmother and stepsisters were struck with disbelief and regret for their cruelty. But Cinderella, true to her kind heart, forgave them. The prince took Cinderella to the palace, where she was given a new gown even more beautiful than the one the fairy godmother had conjured. The kingdom celebrated the marriage of Cinderella and the prince with a grand feast that lasted for days. Everyone marveled at the new princess, whose beauty was only surpassed by her kindness and humility. Cinderella's fairy godmother watched from afar, her heart filled with joy for her dear ward. The palace gardens, where Cinderella had once wept, were now filled with laughter and music, as the kingdom thrived under the rule of the kind and just prince and his enchanting bride. Cinderella never forgot the lessons of her past. She remained humble and compassionate, using her position to help those in need. The magic of her enchanted night lived on in her heart, reminding her and everyone else that dreams could come true and that kindness and love were the true treasures of life. And so, Cinderella and the prince lived happily ever after, their love and joy spreading throughout the kingdom, making it a place where everyone could dream and believe in the magic of their own enchanted nights.